Look closely, truly look, at the quiet figure in the room, the individual who makes a conscious, deliberate, strategic decision to rarely initiate speech, who systematically avoids the chaotic, low-yield vortex of the spotlight, and who is, almost without fail, mistakenly labeled by the performing majority as shy, passive, or worst of all, socially anxious. Society, perpetually orchestrated and ruled by the loudest, most verbose voices, has dangerously conditioned the public to believe that true power is inherently loud. Aggressively visible, and relentlessly demanding, we equate sheer verbal volume and constant external output with influence, authority, and confidence. Yet, the profound, essential, and counterintuitive psychological truth is that this outward silence is not a deficiency to be managed or overcome. It is the ultimate, highly strategic choice. It is the operational signature of an immense, specialized internal engine of observation, calculation, and data synthesis running perpetually beneath the surface. You are not simply shy, you are operating as the silent master, possessing a depth of hidden mastery and strategic penetration that the verbose, externally dependent performer will fundamentally and neurologically never possess. Your strategic silence is your primary defense mechanism against emotional manipulation and your most potent, strategically underutilized weapon in the arena of human dynamics. You are the silent master, the individual whose core operational principle is anchored in the profound, non-negotiable understanding that human attention, neurological energy, and emotional bandwidth are finite, highly perishable resources. By rigorously and strategically remaining silent, you refuse to dilute your own intellectual value, your focus, or your vital neurological resources into low-stakes, meaningless, and depleting external exchanges. Instead, you compel the noisy world to empty its mind, filling the conversational void with information that inadvertently reveals its true intentions, its deepest insecurities, its financial vulnerabilities, and its most closely guarded secrets. This deliberate quietude is the ultimate form of resource management. You conserve the vital, high-grade neurological energy, the very fuel that others squander on superficial performance, exhausting small talk, and maintaining high friction, demanding surface-level relationships, deploying it only at the precise, calculated moment when the strategic impact can be maximized. You are the deliberate architect of your own cognitive focus, refusing to be drawn into the expensive, low-value chaos of constant, unfiltered external communication that destroys focus and burns out the essential processing unit. Perhaps your entire professional and personal life has been negatively defined by the profound misjudgment of the performing majority. They inaccurately believe you're distant, aloof, or lacking confidence, but the reality is that you're meticulously analyzing the intricate, three-dimensional chessboard of the conversation while they are catastrophically stuck debating over a single, two-dimensional square. That powerful, unseen intelligence is your single greatest strategic asset because it remains cool, steady, and entirely untouched by the chaos of immediate emotional reactivity and the desperate, compulsive need for instant external validation. If you have ever been profoundly underestimated and misinterpreted because of your silence, you know this truth deep in your core. That feeling of being underestimated is the final, irrefutable proof of your exclusive membership in this unique cohort of hidden power. This misjudgment is their greatest flaw, and your greatest advantage. Share your deepest thoughts about the crushing burden of being constantly misjudged by the noisy, superficial world in the comments below. We begin by dissecting the 5 hidden powers that serve as the undeniable, quantifiable proof of your hyper-functional psychological strength, revealing precisely why your strategic silence is your most effective defense mechanism against manipulation, chaos, and mediocrity. Power 1. Radical observation and data consumption, the high-fidelity surveillance system. Because you have consciously eliminated the enormous neurological cost of speaking and performing, your sensory pathways, the data intake systems, are wide open, converting you into a high-speed, high-fidelity data acquisition system that consumes information at an exponentially higher rate than the verbal performer. You don't just process the explicit words spoken, your mind instantly cross-references the micro-expressions, the fleeting signs of deceit, the subtle non-verbal contradictions, the shifts in posture, the slight changes in voice tone, and the essential contextual links that the speaker is missing or desperately trying to hide. This is not passive observation, it is a state of high-intensity, functional data acquisition, and it grants you a near omnipresent, objective awareness of the room's true psychological and relational climate. Power 2, Internal Simulation and Risk Modeling, the Private Strategic Laboratory. This constant, high-volume flood of radical observation and high-fidelity data is never wasted, it is immediately filtered, categorized, and fed into an internal, unique cognitive workspace, your private strategic laboratory. This internal space allows you to run endless, complex scenarios of future outcomes and counter-responses, effectively calculating the probabilities of success and failure for every possible decision. You do not react impulsively to provocation or surprise. Instead, you execute a pre-tested, highly optimized plan, often having calculated the opponent's next 3 moves before they've even finished their first sentence. Your subsequent actions are grounded in calculated probability and long-term consequence, never raw, destructive passion. Power 3, Temporal Self-Awareness, the chronologist's gift. The rigorous discipline of sustained silence grants you a superior form of temporal self-awareness. You are neurologically incapable of being trapped in the overwhelming, chaotic immediacy of the present moment. You instinctively use this quiet processing time to meticulously connect past data points, your observational history, to current pressures and future goals, ensuring that every significant move you eventually make is strategically grounded in long-term success, consequence, and legacy. You are the only person in the room consistently operating across the full spectrum of time, past context, present analysis, and future strategy, while others are confined to the now, making you the de facto long-range strategist. Power 4, Emotional Self-Protection, the impenetrable shield. Your intentional silence acts as an impenetrable shield against emotional contagion, unnecessary drama, and destructive social friction. By meticulously limiting your constant verbal exposure and commitment, you conserve the vital neurological energy others drain on social performance and conflict. This grants you the highest, most reliable capacity for sustained internal calm, which is absolutely essential for functional, effective high-stakes decision-making. You protect your own stability by actively refusing to participate in others' emotional volatility, making you a safe, predictable anchor in a chaotic environment that constantly seeks to pull you off-center. Power 5, Self-Concordant Motivation Focus, the internal compass. The loud performer is compulsively driven to seek validation, energy, and approval from external sources: applause, argument, attention. In sharp contrast, the silent master is inherently and powerfully driven by self-concordant motivation. Your goals are intrinsically tied to deep internal values, personal mastery, and internal benchmarks, not applause or external approval. This silent, dedicated focus on your internal compass makes you strategically unstoppable because your actions are entirely independent of external affirmation and the demands of the status quo, freeing you from the manipulation of public opinion and the tyranny of the fleeting spotlight. If you recognize these 5 powers, not as accidental quirks, but as highly specialized, deployable strategic assets, then you are ready to claim your true, unseen potential. If you are ready to understand the deep, structural purpose of your silence and use it as your strategic weapon, ensure you subscribe right now to join us in dissecting the next level of unseen power. Equals 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 dot. The moment you accept these 5 revolutionary psychological powers, your observational depth, your internal simulation, your temporal awareness, your emotional shield, and your self-concordant focus, you unlock the core scientific secret that fuels your strategic strength. Your ultimate, most fundamental power is the resource management principle. This principle dictates that loudness and constant verbal performance are astronomically neurologically expensive. They force the brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex and related language centers, to burn through essential metabolic and cognitive resources dedicated to critical thinking, long-term planning, and emotional regulation simply to maintain a social facade. The quiet mind, however, is a clinical model of resource conservation. It meticulously conserves the neurological fuel, glucose, oxygen, and neurochemical precursors, and deploys it only when maximum strategic leverage is absolutely needed. This means that while the loud, performing person has already catastrophically burned out their daily cognitive budget, exhausted their dopamine reserves, and depleted their processing efficiency by 2 p.m., the silent master is still operating at peak, functional capacity, cool, steady, and waiting for the precise, high-stakes moment where calculated action is required. This disciplined, resource-conserving silence is the engine of your earned secure attachment to personal stability. It ensures that your most important, high-consequence decisions are always made from a place of intellectual abundance, not scarcity, exhaustion, or emotional panic. This powerful realization leads us directly to the paradox of action. The quiet person's extraordinary analytical power often leads to avoidant validation behavior, the self-sabotaging tendency to pull back from the very actions that would prove their power. Your ability to simulate complex scenarios, internal simulation, is so exhaustive and effective that it generates overwhelming, multi-layered risk assessment, often paralyzing the very desire to act. You are so adept at seeing the 6 inevitable consequences of failure, along with the 50 steps required for recovery, that you sometimes refuse to engage with the possibility of success entirely, believing the internal risk analysis is the end of the process. Your silence then transforms from a shield into a comfortable, yet crippling, psychological cage. The paradox is this: your hidden power demands a visible, decisive outcome. The solution is not to become loud, but to commit to strategic action by transforming your internal plan into an external, non-negotiable directive. You must anchor your silence not to fear of failure, but to a predetermined, non-negotiable plan of execution. Your power is maximized not when you merely observe, but when you break the silence at the exact moment the maximum, calculated impact and proof of your mastery is guaranteed. The true expression of the silent master's power is not just the act of observation, it is the art of deployment in communication. The first strategic intervention is the rigorous mastery of the 80-20ths listening rule. This is a conscious, strategic choice to fundamentally break the low-yield transactional norms of conversation. The silent master is not passive, they are actively listening 80% of the time, consuming data, tracking shifts in body language, cross-referencing past behavior, and precisely cataloging the weaknesses and hidden needs of the speaker. This radical level of attention forces the speaker into a position of high exposure, compelling them to fill the conversational void with unnecessary, self-incriminating information. You only deploy your words for the 20% of high-impact moments where the maximum strategic leverage can be gained, for the single devastating question that dismantles the opponent's flawed argument, or the concise, fact-based statement that irrevocably shifts the power dynamic. This is the opposite of emotional reactivity. It is the calculated act of using silence as a psychological magnet, compelling the noisy world to reveal its full hand, its financial vulnerabilities, and its most closely guarded secrets. By rigorously controlling your own verbal output, you seize absolute control of the entire conversational dynamic. The second core intervention turns silence into a devastating psychological weapon in negotiation and conflict. The strategic pause. When confronted with a high-pressure question, an ultimatum, or an aggressive demand, the intuitive, noisy response is to answer immediately, attempting to fill the vacuum of uncertainty. The silent master does the opposite. They deploy a deliberate, uncomfortable, and calculated pause, often extended by several seconds. This deployment of intentional silence creates an immense psychological pressure vacuum that the noisy person, the performer, cannot tolerate. Their internal anxiety forces them to panic and drastically over-reveal information. Filling the silence with their fears, their real intentions, or their true maximum offer before you ever have to speak. This technique uses the self-generated discomfort of others as leverage for absolute control, proving that often, the most powerful and controlling thing you can say is absolutely nothing, and the prolonged silence says everything about your control. The third core intervention is the ultimate defense against subtle manipulation and emotional volatility, the data anchoring technique. During your extensive periods of radical observation, you meticulously collect and verify objective, factual data, the concrete timeline of a past failure, the statistical reality of a business decision, the consistent nonverbal cues of a manipulator. This unassailable data is stored in your internal archive, your earned secure attachment to objective reality. When confronted with loud, emotional, or confusing arguments designed to sway your judgment, you deploy this objective data to anchor the debate. You do not argue with their emotion, you simply state the unassailable fact you observed or collected. This neutralizes the emotional volatility of the performer, instantly forces the conversation back to the realm of objective reality, and protects your cognitive process from being hijacked by manipulation. We conclude with this final, non-negotiable truth: you are not small, you are the silent master, and your strategic silence is your ultimate, unseen power. The cruel secret is that loud people need external validation, but you possess the internal fortitude to operate purely on self-concordant motivation. By rigorously mastering the 80/20 rule, deliberately deploying the strategic pause, and anchoring your decisions to the data anchoring technique, you fundamentally transform your unique temperament into a source of absolute strength and mastery. You stop letting yourself be underestimated, and you start using the world's noise as your information source. If you are ready to permanently stop letting the world mislabel your depth as shyness and solidify your commitment to owning your power, ensure you subscribe right now to join the community of the Silent Master. And finally, leave a comment below. What is one situation this week where you will deliberately deploy the strategic pause instead of answering immediately? Share your commitment and reclaim your silence and sovereignty.